out one morning and I thought I have to do the bar exam, and so I did. I don't actually even know how it was just a weird, it was an impulse. I think I explored a few other courses, um, and I had a conversation with Jackson, and I don't know, it just, that seemed like the course to go for just from that conversation. And I made a quick decision and started studying. So, yeah.
Cool, cool. Well, it's great to have all three of you with us. We've invited some other people to come online, and quite honestly, the tech is such that I don't know that that'll happen. But well, at least I'm glad that we've got the three of you. So we've got a New York bar taker, a Florida bar taker, California bar taker. But I think your stories are universal to people, regardless of what jurisdiction that they're taking. Let me just open it up to the three of you with a first question, which is, what was the biggest hurdle that you faced at the point that you actually began your studies for the bar? What was the thing that probably was the most intimidating for you? Anybody want to jump in on that?
I suppose I could go first.
Sure, go ahead.
All right. Well, for me, coming from a different jurisdiction, being trained in London, having no idea of what U.S. law is all about or how law is taught in the U.S. Just the idea of grappling with the differences between what happens in England and what happens in the United States or in New York, I should say, was perhaps the most intimidated, and not knowing what to expect. Because when I registered, here comes the big box of books, more or less, and 3 months to consume all this material. That was very challenging. So the process can be very intimidated for a foreign trained attorney, but I suppose, as Mr. Jackson has consistently said, listen, just trust your lecturer, trust the person who you chose to work with, and the minute I learned to do that, then things became a bit more comfortable.
Okay, great. Rachel, as a foreign trained attorney, did you have the same sense of just the amount of material that you had to cover and the fact that it was different material?
Yeah, I mean, it's not something that it's daunting. It's a daunting prospect to receive a big box of material. It's daunting because it deals with topics that you just have never studied. Constitutional law, federal civil procedure. Those just without even receiving the books and knowing that you're going to go into them is it's a daunting prospect. So. I guess, but I think for me the thing that I had, I guess, was time management. I guess that was having to get back into study again was the biggest initial obstacle for me, is making time for that. So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and I know you had the particular challenge. You studied actually in New Zealand for a large part of the study time, right?
Did, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and my recollection is that we talked about just the fact that you were going to be in wildly different time zone and traveling and all the other things that went with it. And so, how did you keep yourself disciplined through that process?
A strong will, I guess. I mean, I guess for me, I kept discipline because. And I was back in New Zealand, I was visiting family. I think I really was adamant that I was only going to take the bar exam once, and that I would rather put in the time one time than do it again. Yeah. And that, I think that kept me going. Like, there's just the prospect of not passing the first time made me keep going. So that's how I kept my going.
Yeah. Cool. Bob, for you, what was the biggest challenge that you faced?
Well, I'm not sure that it's any different from those who have spoken already. The interesting thing for me, and just to bear in mind for those others who are listening, I was, after all, a domestically trained attorney.
Right.
And I had been, I guess, what would be called a very successful student at Columbia, and thought that it would be relatively easy.
Still there?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Okay. Yep, go ahead.
I thought it would be a relatively easy task to undertake the review. Of course, then I got the box, as the others did, of the printed books, and I took a look at it and said, oh, what have I done? The reality is that for those who are at least returning to the practice, as was my case, there is a great deal to learn. Never mind that the fact that you think you've known it all and known it all for many years, that just isn't really the case. And I think that Rachel has a point to be made. There are many subjects that you would not have thought would be particularly important to you going forward, but you got to know them. So the critical thing for me was to get started with the reading and then to find a way to keep at it, because it tends to be a discouraging process. But there's a lot to learn, and you've got to be willing to learn it.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah, I think, one of the things I can certainly say about all three of you, having worked with you, is that you are all enormously determined. I can recall instances with each of you in which you expressed to me that you were going to do this in spite of me sometimes, but certainly you were going to get it done. And I think that quality of I'm just in it and I'm going to get there, whatever it takes. Wayne, you had to go through the test and really struggled, but you kept getting better and better and better and better and moving toward and getting to your goal. What does that process of discouragement feel like to any of you? I mean, were there moments of discouragement where you just thought, oh my gosh, this is too much to handle?
Can I take that? Oh, you got that.
Sure.
Okay, go, Wayne.
No.
You could go. You could go.
I may be the only one who quit. And I have a very strong feeling that had I not been challenged by Jackson and been supported as much as I was by my lovely wife, I might well have just done that. Was I motivated enough to finish? It became uncertain about halfway through. I began to question whether it was worth it. And then Jackson said words to the effect of, if you're too dumb, I guess you can't make it. And my wife said, I had not known you were a quitter, but now I do know. And words to that effect turned everything around, and I said, damn it, I'm going to make it.
Yeah, I think that old reverse psychology thing. Sometimes it works. Sometimes people just get really mad at me. Okay, thanks. Wayne, did you want to say something about that?
Well, let me just say that I took the bar 3 times and passed on my 3rd time. Was I ever discouraged? No, never. But maybe that's just me, But there were times when I thought to myself, what am I doing wrong? Is it something that I'm doing wrong? Or is this thing just beyond me, And I could remember one conversation with you, Mr. Jackson, where you said, listen, you just got to just trust me on this. And I did, And it has shown me that the bar is not an easy exam. It's definitely not an easy exam, but it is an exam that can be passed. And if you apply yourself, if you remain positive about the experience, whether you've failed before or you think you're going to fail, is really a matter for you how you want to approach the exam. But ultimately, I believe that the encouragement that you gave to me surely did give me confidence that I could pass the exam, and I did pass the exam on my 3rd time. So yes, it's a challenge, but it's one that definitely can be overcome.
Yeah, and very, very proud of you for that too. Rachel, did you have any thoughts about that?
Can you just clarify? So, what did I feel like giving up?
Yeah, was there ever a point where you were just discouraged in the process and felt like it's too much?
Almost every single day I felt like that. I mean,
okay.
Yeah, there were definitely. I mean, it was sort of a roller coaster. I think. I mean, sometimes you think that you're doing really well. I mean, that's the thing, I guess, is you go on this ride, and sometimes you're doing really well, and sometimes you're not doing well. And I think that can be discouraging, and you just have to, realize that the next day or the next moment is gonna be a different. You're gonna feel differently about it. You're gonna have a different experience. I think that's what keeps you going. As long as you can keep the momentum, you're gonna have enough highs to get you through the lows that you experience.
Yeah, yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Jackson,
okay.
if I may.
Yeah, please.
I feel it's critically important that you have something in the nature of a support network. And while, yes, you can rely to some degree on Jackson doing his thing and pushing you as you need to be, I felt very much that the support of family was critical to my following through. After all, in some measure, I was denying them the time that they would have with me and that I would have to myself, but mostly their support, their encouragement, their refusal to give up on me, I think mattered. And I don't know, I would love to know from the others whether they felt that they had friends or family that were critical to support them when they became discouraged.
Yeah, I mean,
Definitely. There were people that really stood by me. Just about every member of my family, every person who knew that I was doing the bad, they were very supportive, and at all times I felt an obligation to do them proud, So more than anything else, the people who surround you, who are close to you, they are the ones who really help you through. It's critical. It's absolutely critical that you have that support network. So I totally agree. I couldn't say anything less.
Good. I think the idea of having a support network is a big deal, and certainly when you're studying alone, when you're in a home study environment, that can be part of it. And so family, friends, colleagues, people that can help you. Did any of you have the distractions of people trying to tell you what to do about the bar or about your study, where it was to the point where it became a distraction or a problem for you? Was that an issue for any of you?
No, but I think by that token you have to be really selective about who you surround yourself with. I think that there's a lot of, I don't mean just negatively as well. I just mean I think people who are not versed in it have different ideas about what it is, and so you want to have your support network understand what you're undertaking, as well as, because I think you can tell a lot of people, and people will be like, well, you're fine, of course you're going to pass. Those kind of things are just as harmful, I think, as getting down on yourself. I think you have to be undertaking it with a support network that really is aware of, the stakes and, what's involved in it as well, and isn't dismissive of actually the undertaking that you're, going through.
Yeah. I think the people that tell you, oh, it's no big deal, you can pass, when you recognize that in California, I think the pass rate was 39%. In New York, it was all the way up to 43 or 44%. Bob, you got the easy one. I mean, Florida was up at 68%. So, the you can pass automatically kind of thing is, I think that can be harmful, sometimes more harmful than the people that tell you other things. Go ahead.
I got that a lot, and it sort of felt like some people were undermining the process. Like I didn't want to be surrounded by those people. It sort of it was dismissive of actually what was going on. You need people who understand what you're going through, I think.
Yeah, good. Okay. What about the bar exam itself, the process of actually taking the exam? Anything that was a surprise to any of the three of you, or something that you felt that you really needed to, that you would want other people to be aware of as they go into the test? Any suggestions or thoughts? Because the three exams you sat in are considered generally to be the three toughest in the country. So you're the champions in the hard places. So anything about the test that surprised you or was challenging, particularly difficult for you?
Well, I will tell you this. It's maybe not the test itself, but the atmosphere of distrust created
Hmm.
by, the metal detectors and you can't take a pencil and oh my God, you're wearing a watch? Oh no. And,
Yeah.
I do understand what they're after. It does seem to be overplayed. I mean, if these folks who are taking the exam can't be trusted enough to wear a wristwatch, notwithstanding the Apple Watch of today, then there's something wrong. So you do have to be ready for that sense of distrust, which is
Yeah.
conveyed by the bar associations prior to and during your taking of the exam.
Yeah, and I don't know that anybody does that more than Florida. They are the king of mind games, I think. But in every jurisdiction, I think that's definitely a case. Florida goes a little nuts, I think, over the top. Um,
Oh, thank you,
Anybody
Jackson.
else? Yeah. Anything that happened for you, Rachel or Wayne, on the test that was particularly challenging or surprising?
I think that you can't underestimate how kind of physically grueling in some senses is sitting there for a long period of time. I think for me, I even if you're used to studying for that long, I was really hungry halfway through. I think you just have to think of it more as an endurance race, and I was prepared for that. I just don't think I was prepared quite as well as I could have been for it to.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I think that they're testing that just as much as anything, your ability to handle stress and I think you have to be mentally prepared for that, and I don't think you can underestimate how mentally prepared you have to be for that. So,
Yeah, the California test being 3 full days is just brutal. Texas is 2.5. Most of the exams are 2 days, but 3 days is really, really a long time. And it's long days. I mean, no matter what exam you're in, that 6 hour day turns out to be about a 10 hour day with everything that's built in. So that can
yeah.
be a lot to deal with. Good, good, good. Wayne, anything about the New York exam that surprised you?
Definitely. I think what was not only a surprise but a shock to me was the number of people taking the bar exam.
Yes.
You know, I mean, I'm from an island where there's only 90,000 people, and you walk into this exam facility, and in my mind, there's about probably well over 2,000, 3,000 people there, and and you begin to wonder what is carrying on, and the time that it takes you to get through the security lines, it's like going to carnival and having to stand.
In all the worst ways. Okay. Yeah.
Some
it,
carnival.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's not a nice feel, and then obviously the duration of the test, it's a full day of work basically, except that there's no relaxation during that time. It's tough on you, not only physically
Yeah.
but mentally.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I
I
think,
want to talk
Jackson,
about that.
you
Yeah, go
made
ahead.
the point. You made the point during the course of being prepared mentally and physically to take the exam. And I think that, as long as people follow that course, including, pulling away for a while and getting a break in your studies so that you can retain balance, it was critical when exam time came.
Yeah, I think that balance is a big deal, and I recall, that there were a few moments, really with almost with every student, but I remember, Bob, a couple moments where I just told you go out and take a walk, take a break,
Yes,
get
right.
away from it for a little while, just to give yourself a fighting chance because it is so challenging. I was looking, I got some questions from people in anticipation of this, and one of the questions that came was this question of what do you do when you're at the exam and you get this feeling that the writer said of dread, just kind of that overwhelming sense of, oh my gosh, it's so much going on here. There's so much happening. Did any of the three of you have that feeling? And if so, how did you deal with it?
I guess I had it in a way. You open that exam book and you see how many pages it is, and you begin to think, I got to fight my way through this. I think the answer turned out to be you got to plunge and plunge fast. Get into that first question right away and get your mind off, this is the only question. It's not. Get through that first question as quickly as you can and get on to the next, and then it becomes more routine.
Good, good, good. Anybody else have any of that sense of dread, or I would love to think that you all went in so confident that it wasn't going to happen, but I do know that it can feel overwhelming at times, or moments in. Were there moments, for example, in writing the essays, in which you felt, wow, I really don't know the law that they're asking me about here, or didn't really have it locked in? And if so, what did you do? Because you obviously were able to overcome that if it happens. So how did you do that? It's a question I get asked a lot.
Well,
okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Let me just say again, I did the exam 3 times before I passed. The first time, I honestly believe that I just simply was just not prepared. I was not prepared. The second time, I came to the exam thinking, okay, I've seen that I was not prepared, and if I work on the weak points, as Mr. Jackson suggested I work on, I would have been okay, But going into the exam, I think I made an error in not practicing enough before the exam, because there's an art to me that I've learned in writing the exam. It's not like a typical exam. You go in there and you regurgitate information. It requires a certain level of practice. And the third time around, what I found was that because I had practiced on the exam conditions so many times, that the anxiety that I would have felt the first 2 times, it wasn't there. I guess I could say I got lucky in the third time, in that most of the questions and the way in which I hoped or wished the questions would come, they came in that way. So I felt a bit comfortable starting off the exam. But just to say though, I think going into the exam, what worked for me was to maintain my composure, take a deep breath, think about what you're doing, what you're there for. It's like going into a boxing match or something of that sort. You're very focused about the exam. You look at the paper, take a quick glance through every section, and choose the question that you think you can do best at, and do that one first within the time conditions that you've practiced for. Because going in there having not practiced, I think, is really calling disaster upon yourself.
Yeah. Okay, great. I appreciate that. Rachel, you have any thoughts about that?
I guess for me, I think you can get caught. I mean, I think it's a trap and a danger to get caught up in worrying that you don't know it. I think you just have to keep going. I mean, I think, especially in California, anywhere, I can only speak from California experience, but I think you just don't have time to. If you keep going, if you keep writing, then you can always come back to a bit if you forget it. But the point is to just keep the momentum going. For me, anyway, I think you can, if you can give yourself this, permission to move on, you can come back if you remember it. Otherwise, I guess I put down things that I thought were the law. I mean, and then move on from that as well, and not dwell on whether I thought I got it right or not. I just don't think there was any point dwelling. I think it's a bit destructive to do that. So.
Yeah, I think one of the things I would simply ask all three of you is, although I'm pretty sure I know the answer, did you know all of the law that was going to be on the exam? I mean, because I hear this from potential students all the time. I've got to know everything that's going to be on the exam in order to pass. I mean, was that your experience, that you had to know everything? Did you know everything?
Of course. No.
Of course. Okay. Well, okay. Yeah. Easy enough. All right. Good. Well, I wonder because I think sometimes what happens is that people put themselves in this box of expecting too much on the exam, expecting too much of themselves on the exam, and that adds to the pressure that they feel. Did you have a sense of that as you were? I mean, just even looking at other bar takers during the test, did you get a feeling that some people were putting themselves in that situation?
I mean, I think
Yes.
everybody,
No?
everyone went to law school there usually. I mean, everybody's got that inclination probably in the first instance, and you see it heightened on the bar exam. It's this personality type. If you're a type A or if you're a high achiever and you're sitting the bar exam in the first place, I think that you do put that pressure on yourself. But I also think you have to give yourself permission to just to know what you know and trust what you know and go with that.
Right. Right. Okay. I think that makes an awful lot of sense. And just trusting yourself is a big part of this process. What advice would you all have for people who are just now, and we're about 65 days or so from next bar exam, which I know thrills all of you that you're not taking it. But what advice would you have for people that are just now getting underway and getting started? Anything that would that you would think they should know at this stage?
Yes, schedule. Schedule,
Okay.
schedule. Block out
Mm-hmm.
the time. When you block it out, really mean it. The intervention of what's going on around you, at least in my case, was pretty heavy. And I had to set a schedule and stick to it, or I could never have made it through. So that initial planning, trying to plot out, how much time have I got? How much time can I afford to spend? Following, Jackson, your suggestions, which in large measure, in many cases, in my case anyway, I found that there was not enough time allotted to do all that I was supposed to do. But I stuck to the schedule. And sticking to that schedule meant that I got the most I could get out of the time I had.
Yeah, and scheduling obviously is a big deal. You know, I know that all three of you spent a long time studying in terms of, intense studying during that period of time, pretty continual studying. What would you say, about how many hours a week would you say you were studying at this stage, a couple months before the exam? Do you have a recollection of that? Wayne, you're laughing. Tell us what you were doing.
I pretty much lived in my books. Sometimes against your advice, but
yeah. Most of the time.
Excuse me?
Most of the time against my advice, but that's okay.
But my advice to anybody would be to trust yourself. Trust yourself. Trust the person that you chose to guide you. What I've seen, while I studied, and for myself and for others, is that a person would have chosen a particular course to follow, and then here comes Tom, or here comes Jill, or here comes Jane, and she says, "Oh, why are you doing that? You should do this, you should do that," and oftentimes it leads to confusions because you are already on the path, and you're going to be diverting, trying to follow what somebody else is suggesting from their particular schedule. So trust yourself, trust the person that you've chosen to guide you through this, and remain committed to it. That's my suggestion.
Yeah. Okay, good. Rachel, how many hours would you say you were studying on a weekly basis a couple months before the exam? Do you remember?
I think I was probably, realistically, so where are we looking at December? I think this is about the time they started to ramp it up, but probably at this point I was doing maybe 15, 20 hours a week, realistically.
Yeah, that's my recollection from you. And I recall even at one point telling you to back it down a little bit. Do you remember? That I was concerned that you were actually pushing it too hard. What did you think when I asked you to scale it back a little? Do you
Um,
remember?
yeah, of course. I thought you were mad and that I should, do what I need to do. And, um, I, so, but I think, I guess I did scale it back, and then towards the end, I was studying more. I was, like I
Yeah.
took the
Yeah.
time to really, I put more in than 20 hours a week for sure. Um, I think going from that, it's sort of, and going from, is it Bob, what he was saying, I think you've got to give yourself permission. Apart from scheduling, you have to give yourself sometimes permission to just do what you can do and not beat yourself up if you can't meet your schedule, or because
Right.
that becomes destructive as well. You should schedule with the best intentions, but you need to listen to yourself as well and what you can get in, because at some point a lot of study just becomes counterproductive. You just are not remembering what you need to remember, or doing the
Yeah.
best that you can do with the time. So, I mean, I definitely scheduled, but I was very flexible with that scheduling as well.
Good. Good. Bob, when you were studying, what was the most valuable component for you? Was it the reading, the lectures, the question practice?
I think it was the reading in my case.
Okay.
I think the lecture was frosting, that is to say, reinforcement.
Mm-hmm.
And while I can't judge because I don't have the expertise that you do in the teaching field, what was ultimately the most important, the way I felt about it was that I needed to get through the reading. Since I was a very slow reader, the hours I spent were probably more than those who've already spoken.
Yeah.
I tried to schedule 6 hours a day, 5 days a week. Most people can't do that anyway. My retirement made it possible to do it, but the reality was that it really wasn't possible because there
Yeah.
were too many distractions and too much going on, even though I tried very hard to keep to the schedule. The bottom line message is, yeah, but I tried to get 6 hours a day in. I rarely made it.
Okay. Yeah. I know you put in lots and lots of hours. I know it was a big battle. Wayne, one of the memories that I have of you studying actually was that we would Skype and you would be sitting on your bed, in your room with your computer and all your books and things around you. You put in hours and hours and hours of study over a period of time. You want to talk a little bit about that process?
Well, I really put in a lot of hours. Sometimes 10 hours a day. I'd break it up. But looking back, I think it might have backfired in some ways. So I think the proper approach is to have a balance. Take some time out for yourself, relax, do something fun. Don't do what I did, because it can backfire. But ultimately, again, I think what's the best approach would be for a person to follow themselves, know what works for them, and try to live up to it, because you just got to be yourself. You just got to be true to who you are and what you're doing, and avoid listening to a person who may lack the necessary experience to really tell you what the exam is all about. And I think, Rachel, you mentioned, or one of you mentioned about people who would underestimate the exam. Oh, you're going to pass. You're going to pass. Especially if you do it and you didn't pass, that can really be disheartening. So put other people's expectations out your mind sometimes, if it's going to be, it possibly might affect you in a negative way, and just remain focused. Just remain focused. Never give up.
Cool. Well, I want to wrap up really with just one final question, and I'm so appreciative of all three of you being with me today. But I want to talk about what you remember about the moment when you found out you passed the bar exam, what that felt like, what your reaction was, how that was. Yeah, Wayne, go ahead and start with you. What do you remember about that?
Well, I remember everything. First of all, I was sleeping. And I remember dreaming that a friend of mine had said to me, listen, you passed the exam, please wake up and check your results. And I woke up, and like customary, my phone is beside me, all my email comes through my phone. So I took up my phone, opened my emails, and there was an email from the exam board. And I could not see the contents of the email clearly. So I had to get to my computer. And between the time of getting from my phone to my computer, I think 3,000 years might have passed.
At least.
Then seeing the results that I passed, congratulations, you passed. You know, there's so many emotions that you go through. It's not something you can really describe. You have to experience it to believe it. It's one of those things. It's one of those things. Honestly, it's really
made the journey worthwhile. I actually have a very distinct memory, Wayne, of the first time I spoke with you. I was actually on a streetcar in New Orleans when you called to talk to me, and I remember you saying to me, "I'm going to do whatever it takes. I know it's a big, long road for me as a foreign attorney, and I've got a lot of challenges, but I am going to pass this exam." And I remember I was on my way to, well, I don't know, probably to either drink or go to a parade because I was in New Orleans, and thinking, wow, this guy is really focused. He's really this is gonna be some cool thing when it happens. So it was very exciting for me when I learned that you had passed. So yeah, a memorable moment. Bob, what was it like for you when you got your results?
My reaction was, oh, thank God, and I'm never doing this again. And I said to my wife, you know, the talk about moving to California, not going to happen.
Okay.
Take it.
Yeah.
Well,
there you go.
Rachel,
yeah, take the bar, right? Come on. Right?
I'll send my stuff to Rachel.
Yeah, there you go.
I'll send you my material. You send me yours.
Yeah, there you go. Rachel, what was it like for you when you got your results?
I had started drinking earlier in the day, not that much earlier. I got home from something, and I was I think I was pretty tentative. I had a lot, like I said, I had a lot of people who were, particularly people in New Zealand who were like, of course you won't fail this, like, of course you're going to pass. So I think that for me was a really negative, horrible weight to have to carry around for the whole time. I really hated that. And I think for me, like, part of it, I mean, I would have been disappointed if I'd failed. But I think part of it, like, I felt, and I think people close to me felt like the hardest thing for me would be if I failed, having to tell those people, or I would be embarrassed about it. So
bet.
Yeah, that's a thing. It's a real blow. It feels like a blow to your ego, and I don't think it wasn't my personal expectation. It was what other people thought about me. That was going to be my biggest issue, which is so silly, and that's why I suggest not surrounding yourself with people who, think it's going to be a cakewalk. But so I think I'd had like maybe half a drink. I'd sort of been kind of, I tried to fill in as much time as possible because I knew obviously in California the results come out at a certain time. So I knew that I couldn't really do anything until that time. Then I entered my information, and I had a similar experience as Wayne. I guess I didn't really see the screen for like like you have to look at it a couple of times and you're like, oh, this name appears on the pass list, and then I checked it several times just to make sure that it really did appear on the pass list, and then I don't know. After that I just felt, I mean, I didn't really do anything to celebrate. I just felt like a big relief. Like I just felt like a weight had been lifted off, and it was great.
Yeah, what a great thing. That's awesome. Well, nothing beats that feeling of passing, and I have to say that the primary reason I do what I do and have done it for 25 years is because, frankly, there is just no greater thrill as a teacher than seeing the people you work with reach their goals. And watching the three of you meet your goals in what is arguably the most difficult bar exam environment I think that I've had in 25 years. I mean, the test is brutally tough. In California, Rachel, I don't know if you know this, but foreign trained attorneys had a pass rate on California of 15%.
Oh my
so,
God.
I know that. I knew that going in.
Crazy. It's crazy. New York is not much better, much higher. In Florida, we don't even let foreign attorneys take the exam, but we do let New Yorkers like Bob come in. You know, crazy statistics and very difficult. You know, it is so rewarding to see the cool things that happen. And I know the three of you will make an impact in your perspective or respective markets. I am very, very grateful to you for sharing your insights and thoughts. I know that this will inspire some other people and encourage other people. I just want to say that I appreciate that all three of you put your confidence in us and in me personally. It means a great deal, and I'm glad that we could go through that journey with you. And then celebrate your successes. So this has been fun. I'm glad we got the tech figured out. Thank you so much for giving up a part of your Saturday morning or afternoons to be with us on a holiday weekend. And yeah, just great fun and great to see all of you again. And thanks so much, and thank you all for watching. And we're going to sign off now, and if you guys want to hang for a minute afterwards, we'll be offline. But again, thanks everybody for watching, and appreciate so much you being with us.